thank you very much for those that just helped us get this up and running. All right, hello, 8th graders, teachers, and any parents watching. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I would like to ask if any student would like to give the introduction to confirmation. I'm looking also for a parent to read the first reading. If you or your parent are interested, please contact me. I'm going to be choosing one parent and one student from the religious ed, as well as one parent and one student from St. Charles, so that we are even, okay? So if you are interested, you can email me, and then I'm going to just put all the names in a hat if I have more than, one or two names, and then I'm going to choose from there. Same thing with the parents to make it fair, okay? So I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Rana Hazel. Dr. Hazel is a native of Cinnaminson here. Dr. Rana Hazel is a director of clinical anatomy and physiology, am I saying that right? At LaSalle University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where she trains pre-med, nursing, veterinarian, physical, and occupational therapy students about the wonderful creations of the human body. So interesting. Dr. Hazel is an active member of our parish community, participating in the Carnival, Loaves and Fishes, St. Vincent de Paul, and the Stations of the Cross, and wherever she can lend a hand. She also volunteers twice a month in the soup kitchen at St. Mary's Cathedral in Trenton. In January of 2017, Dr. Hazel made her first medical mission trip to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with a group of nurses from LaSalle University. She described it as love at first sight, and immediately signed up to do it again 2 more times in 2017. In 2018, Dr. Hazel led a medical mission team from Philadelphia to Port-au-Prince on 2 separate occasions. She has traveled to Haiti many more times with the other teams to continue providing medical care to the people of Tabar. Dr. Hazel established an education fund for the children of Haiti because one of the most effective ways of poverty is education. To date, over 20 Haitian children have been awarded scholarships for a full year of study at the local Catholic school. With that, I am very honored to introduce you to Dr. Hazel, but I also have something I would like to present to her from all of us. Dr. Hazel? This is from the St. Charles Borromeo Parish and Religious Ed, and we're very happy that you can accept it on our behalf.
Thank you.
And here you go.
Okay, I have to stay right here. Okay, what about moving the projector? I have a mouse, so if you could, I could just kind of give you a signal and you could kind of just roll it to the next one. That would work. Good evening, everyone. The people online. I've come to share some things about missions and missionary. So I start out by asking the basic question of what is a missionary? Because a lot of people have a misconception of what a missionary is. Years ago, which we call back today, people would think that missionaries would have to pack up their homes and leave the country and go away for years at a time. But that's really a misconception, because technically a missionary is any one of us who chooses to do something for someone else. So let's roll the mouse. And so every single one of you is a missionary, because every person, no matter what your age, has the capacity to serve someone in some way. It could be your next door neighbor. When it snowed, maybe you were compassionate and went next door and shoveled the snow for your neighbor, right? So you voluntarily did that. You didn't say, I need to make some money. You just did that because of the kindness of your heart. Simply carrying the grocery bags for someone that you see struggling in the parking lot. Cleaning up your yard, cleaning up your neighbor's yard, can all be things that can be think of in a missionary capacity. Okay. So here you see various pictures of missionary work. So in the upper left are some of my students from LaSalle University, and they readily volunteer. So every 2 weeks, every other week. So we volunteered last week. We volunteer this week. Some of the students come here to our parish to help in various capacities. So these are people that just want to give something of themselves. Some of them will work in the soup kitchen up at St. Mary's to help prepare the food. Some of them will just stuff bags. We have kids that are 9 years old that will come and stuff a bag to give to someone that is homeless or has food insufficiency. Next, you could just keep the mouse. I think if you keep the mouse, I don't know if it has to be that close. So where do missions actually begin? This is really something important for you, is that as younger people, missions really began in your neighborhood. So, when they have a neighborhood cleanup day, a park like Wood Park or some other park that needs to be cleaned up, because in the wintertime, debris blows into the park. And so it's very possible that there's paper, plastic, bottles, trash in the park. And so, usually there's a community day where people will come out and volunteer, bring a trash bag and some gloves, and you clean up the area. So that's usually where missions began. Let's roll it. So here's a picture showing you some of the kids in different neighborhood cleanups, right? That's really the first place that usually younger people start. And then they, take it on to another level. Next slide. So again, you don't have to do it just in Cinnaminson, even though you live in Cinnaminson. It's very possible that some of you play sports, some of you go down to Palmyra, which is obviously our neighbor. Some people go to Delran for different sporting activities. They're on different sports teams. Some people do travel soccer. And so when you do stuff like that, even travel baseball, sometimes you go to different places and you're able to help people in that community, even if it's just in your local park area. And so, again, one of the things you can do is to be environmentally conscious is to pick up after yourself. You don't throw stuff on the ground, put it in the trash can. And if there's not a trash can, you bring it home and put it in your own trash can. Next slide. So it's all about reaching out to other people. That's all it is you saying, I want to help someone else. And so we also collect clothes. And by the way, our parish is fantastic with clothing donations. So last week we had people donate lots of socks to the homeless people, because one of the things that's lacking in the shelters, the heat isn't that great. Some people have no heat in their homes. And so people from the parish donated clothing, socks. And this week, I put out a call on Sunday. Already I have 5 bags of blankets and gloves for people for this coming Saturday. So that's how missionary-oriented our parish is, right? They think about the fact that every single person has an extra pair of socks in their closet that they don't like. Some people look in their closet and they say, why do I have this in my closet? I'm never going to wear it. You put it in the bag, you drop it off. We take it up to the soup kitchen, where people who have homes with no heat, people that have no homes at all, some of the people sleep out in the park. Everybody can't get into a shelter. So there's all kinds of issues that go on there. But we have, my students come up and volunteer, and they give out clothing to people. We have men's, women's, boys, girls, infants. So all those categories are covered when we do our missionary work. Next slide. One of the things that you see is the soup kitchen. So again, a soup kitchen is a place where people can come to get a meal. Most of the time it's a hot meal, and then sometimes it's sandwich. And so what I like about our diocese is that in all the churches in the area will each take a week to donate food to the St. Mary's Soup Kitchen. And then we get into the kitchen and we prepare it, separated out. We have containers. People donate containers and all that kind of stuff. And before the pandemic, we had people come into the church. We had tables set up to serve them. Since the pandemic, our guests cannot come into the church. So only the volunteers come into the church. Just like you guys are here. We spread out and we pack stuff up. And then we hand it out. We have this little tree and we pass the bags out the door to the people that are standing in line. And you would be surprised, like the past couple Saturdays, it's been 20 degrees. And we go outside and we give bags to people that are lined up. And literally at 8 o'clock in the morning, people line up outside the church to get food. And so sometimes we're able to give them extra food. You know, some people will donate, you know, chips, cookies, and stuff like that for extra, non-perishable food, and we pack it in a bag and we give it to people. So that's what goes on in the soup kitchen. And hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we'll be back inside. Who truly knows? Next slide. So this is another professor that one of my colleagues that works with me at the university. And again, you could see their tables are set up. And the interesting thing about working in a soup kitchen is that you see that children come into the soup kitchen to eat also. So some of these kids are living with grandparents because something has happened to their parents, and they have an older caregiver who can't afford to feed them all the time. Next slide. And again, you see us, we pour coffee, tea, lemonade, water. And so literally the students will just walk around and say, what can I get you? Would you like some more tea? Would you like some more coffee? Would you like a glass of milk? For the little kids, we give them milk. Like a restaurant. Yeah, it's like a waitress, except you don't get any tips. So yeah. And you could see that, you know, some of the people have handicap issues, but we accommodate. So on an average, just so you know the numbers, on average, we serve between 200 to 400 people on a Saturday before 12 noon. So we're very busy. We're very busy. It's a constant rollover, turnover. Next slide. Same thing. You see the kids. Next slide. One of the colleagues in the kitchen. Somebody's got to do the cooking. So we have a lot of big pots, obviously, since we're cooking for large groups of people. And we will pour stuff into the pots, cook it up, use the ovens, and then we have to wash all the dishes and clean up. So some of the volunteers just choose to wash dishes. I mean, you don't ever have to leave the kitchen if you don't want to. But it's nice to go out and mingle. And some of the students at some of the parishes, I know one of the, what's the name of that church on Kings Highway in Cherry Hill? That school, Christ the King, the kids in 3rd and 4th grade make placemats, and they draw pictures, and they say nice things like, welcome, we care about you. They make up nice little placemats, and then they donate the placemats, and then we spread them out to give to people. And just reading something like that makes you feel good to know that somebody cares about you. So it's very nice. Next slide. Now, other things that we can do and you can do when the pandemic ends is to volunteer to play. So we have people that come, we do arts and crafts. Some of the boys will play soccer with the kids and run around, just play tag, just to have some fun, because a lot of these kids don't get interaction with other people. They especially don't get interaction with kids. So it's nice to be able to get special attention. So we do lots of arts and crafts. And every holiday, depending what the holiday is, we try to, make it special for the kids. so you could see. There's a whole table full of people. On one side are the volunteers, on the other side are the guests. And people donate the supplies, by the way, also. We don't buy anything. People will donate old art supplies that they no longer use, they don't have any need for. And we try to come up with creative things for the kids to make. Yep. Oh, St. Mary's. Next. So, again, supplies or donations. So if you ever have some old games and games, by the way, I had somebody give me 5 different games recently, which is nice because I give these to the kids that are lined up with their relatives, and that gives them something to do when they go home. So everybody doesn't have toys. And so it's nice when people donate stuff that it'll occupy the mind of the child to do something that they like to do that brings them joy. Next. So here's one of our signs for our sock drive. You know, I think everybody knows that socks wear out, and they don't last forever, especially if you only have one pair. So some of the people, they will come back and ask for another pair of socks almost every time we see them, because some of the guys, when you get your feet wet, they really don't have access to what am I going to do with these wet socks. And so a lot of them will just chuck their socks. And the women tend to, you know, keep track of it. But we need socks. I mean, socks is an easy thing. Somebody says, well, I'll buy 3 pair of socks, and then you keep a couple pair, and then we'll donate a pair. So that's the way it works. Nowadays, you go to Marshall's, you go to Walmart, you go to TJ Maxx, you can get a pair of socks for $3.99. You know, so some of the students will take their allowance money and donate. Next. So you see the happy faces of people who've gotten a new pair of socks. Next. So, as I said, it's the most needed but the least donated article. A lot of people will donate a sweater, you know, a shirt, but what about socks? Especially in the wintertime. And gloves are the same thing. I got a number of pair of gloves, but I didn't get any gloves for men. I got all these gloves for kids and for women. And then I also, you know, most of the people, unfortunately, that are homeless are men. And so we always put out calls to the Holy Name Society. A lot of you might know about Holy Name here at our parish. They often will get us stuff. And you see people coming in, donating clothing, volunteering. And we separate out this stuff. We don't use hangers, but we do separate out. Each table, we have men's, women's, boys, girls. We actually separate the tables. So when someone comes up and says, I have a brand new baby, I don't have any clothes for my baby, we know where to look for that item for that person. So what does the Bible teach us? In the Bible, it says, when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I needed something, you provided that for me. And so the Bible teaches us that when we make sacrifices in our life to give something to someone else, we are serving God at the same time. Next. So every Christian is a missionary because your actions are showing God's love. And it's all about how you present yourself to someone else. Even just eye contact with another person who's struggling makes a difference because it shows that you care, you recognize them, you see them, as opposed to acting as if they're not in your field of vision. And this is from Pope Francis. Next slide. So some of our missions occurs overseas, and that's what Michelle was saying about it, is that I go overseas 4 times a year to do missions in the poorest country, and that's Haiti. So I gather a team. Not everyone is medically trained. I take teachers because we have a school, and I take students so they can learn, and then I take adults who have some kind of experience or desire to be a missionary. We usually go from anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks, depending on what time of year it is. So obviously in the summertime you have more time than in the wintertime. So I was there in December because I had 6 weeks off. I was free. And the man in the blue shirt is a pastor, and he's bilingual. And so he has set up a school for the kids that are orphans to be able to provide them with an education. So a lot of times, and many of you know that in 2010 there was an earthquake in Haiti, and people lost their parents. And so some of these kids just literally were on the street, living on the street. And so the pastor went through and gathered up the kids. There's 127 at this specific orphanage, and provides shelter, food for these kids. And so one of the things that we do is we raise money. And so in November, actually on Thanksgiving Day, we gave them money so that they could buy beds for the kids, real beds. So now they have a bed and a mattress, which they did not have before. Next slide. So the kids are different in the classroom. They get the book bags, they're in the classroom, but they mix grade levels because the space is so small. So somebody is over here learning math, and you're in 8th grade, and somebody over here is in 6th grade learning something else. And then somebody over here is in 3rd grade. They got all these kids in one room. And you can only imagine how difficult it is to focus on on what the teacher is saying when there's 3 teachers talking at the same time. So it's extremely difficult. But the kids are amazing. They're happy, first of all, to be in school. And then they're happy to be in a camaraderie environment. And they're very polite. Every time you walk in the room, they stand up and greet you. They say their prayers before class. They have they do prayers at the opening. There's an area there. And there's the teacher, one of the teachers, and they have these old-fashioned chalkboards. Old-fashioned chalkboards. And so it's interesting. I was at the dollar store one day, and I saw this chalk, and so I just bought it because I was thinking, who's going to use this chalk? The only time I see chalk here is when people are drawing on the pavement. That's the only time I see chalk. And they were ecstatic to get chalk. Supplies, school supplies. I often will take papers, folders, all kinds of pens, pencils, basic stuff for the kids. Next slide. And here you can see the little kids in the back of the room. And they pack them in, as you can see. There's several kids sitting on one bench. So there's no space. And so obviously, the interesting thing is that these kids are taught to respect each other. So there's never anybody saying, oh, you're sitting too close to me, oh, don't touch me. They don't do that stuff. Everybody's just happy to be there. As you can see, they're all squeezed in together. Next slide. And this is when we're actually inside the church doing medical clinics. And so that's one of my nurses, she's actually a retired nurse, but she comes on the trips. And she's holding the baby while we treat the mother. Okay? But we'll check out the babies. We'll check out anybody that comes into the church clinic. We will examine, make sure that nothing's going on. Next slide. So this is the schoolyard. They had a celebration for St. John Baptiste de La Salle, the patron saint of education. And so the kids got to wear their dressing clothes. They got to wear their clothes. And again, just like right now, this week, I've packed a barrel to ship to Haiti with clothing that people have donated. That's summer clothing, of course, because it's 90 degrees here every day. It's hot. So they can't wear winter coats in Haiti. They can only wear summer clothing So if you outgrow summer clothing and you don't want it anymore, then you make a donation and you send it over to them. So they're having a celebration. But this is the courtyard where they pray every day before school starts. The kids show up for school at 6:15 a.m., cranked up and ready. I am just like, how do you get up that early and function? But they're just excited. Next slide. So you see the little kids. They have, the interesting thing is that we do a couple schools. So we're out of the orphanage and we're over into the Catholic school. And you see the kids are wearing their uniforms, the LaSalle shirts. And it goes from pre-K to ninth grade. Pre-K to ninth grade. They have an average of 50 kids in a class. Next slide. And by the way, there's a total, when we started the school, there was, I don't know, maybe 80, 90 kids. Now, there's 800 kids. Everybody is wants their kids to be educated. Of course, I mean, what parent wouldn't want their child to have something better? So they're all getting ready to line up to pray. Next slide. Typical little kids, you know, the world over. You know, you tell everybody, pay attention, and everybody's doing something different. Next slide. So this is the pre-K classroom. Pre-K. So you see the little table. Most of the kids will bring something to eat for lunch. And if they don't have something, we give them something. We have a cook in the kitchen. And they sell water. Little bags of water. That's how they get water. They have bags of water, not bottles. They don't use bottles. And you can see some of them have little water bottles. And that's the teacher. And they do a lot of arts and crafts. It's very artistic. Next slide. Now, the woman in that picture is a sister of the Immaculate Conception. She's a nun, one of the younger nuns. And she has come to do after-school programs for some of the girls at the orphanage because we try to give them something outside of school to give them some joy. And so the girls come to the after-school program. They have an after-school religious program just like we do here. They teach them about, Christ and singing songs. They teach them songs and all that kind of stuff. Next slide. And the girls were making flowers, and they made me a flower. And of course, you see I was learning my Creole. Next slide. So these are some of the medications that we pack and take. I take an average of 6 duffel bags of medications over to Haiti every time I go. I raise money to buy the medications, and I pack them up and take them over. We stock a clinic there. We have a school nurse there to provide for basic problems. You know, little kids get fevers. Little kids get sick. They get stomach aches. You know, stuff that happens to children. And they don't have, so we have them come over to the clinic, and everybody knows what to do. You fall, you skin your knee. We have, stuff to put on your wounds. So we try to keep it stocked. For the adults, we do hypertension, high blood pressure. We do diabetes to control them, to give them some longevity to their lives. Next. This is my pharmacist. So we have to have a pharmacist, somebody that I can just tell what to do. They know what to do. So she doles out the medication, but she also likes to play with the children, as you can see. Next slide. So we're back at the orphanage inside the church. We're about to leave, and some of the people here at St. Charles participate in a number of road races, and so some of the guys donated these shirts from races that they had been in, and the boys at the orphanage were just so happy to get these shirts. So I had to take a picture of the fact that they were thrilled to get Morristown, New Jersey shirts. Next slide. And these are just some of the kids after a long day's work. Next slide. So being a missionary or becoming involved in missions is all about teamwork. It's all about teamwork. You know, if you don't travel, I have people that just come for packing parties. We have a packing party where you just show up and pack some of these stuff in bags. You show up and you pack them out. I have people that come just to volunteer. You know, roll up the clothes really tight, put them in the barrel. Roll them up tight. You know, we need people to do that kind of stuff. You know, separate out men's, women's, boys, girls. These are things that volunteers do. And so this is our team. A lot of the nuns. In fact, this nun will be here at St. Charles next month. So she's going to come to visit to thank everyone for all the work and donations and things that we do for people in Haiti. So this will be her first trip to New Jersey. So we're very, very excited. Very excited. Next slide. So now you guys know the secret. Being a missionary is something of your heart. You feel it. You feel like you want to do something for somebody else. So you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to go overseas. You don't have to wear a uniform and say with a tag, I'm a missionary. You just look at the world the way that Jesus approached it and said, all are welcome. And that's what we strive to do. And there should be one, I think there's one more slide. Maybe not. Okay. Questions. What questions do you have for me about the work that I do? How many of you guys have volunteered ever? Put your hand. Good. Good. Have any of you guys worked at the carnival? Nobody. Wow. Okay. So, has anybody ever volunteered to help a neighbor? Good. Very good. So, I mean, even sometimes at school, your teacher might need help. Like maybe she's really busy and you see the board needs erasing. Maybe you say, I'm going to ask if I can volunteer to erase the board. Something really simple shows your compassion for your teacher, for somebody else. Do any of you guys speak a different language? Anybody? Good. It's very important to learn a different language because you never know what situation you might be in to be able to help somebody. And by the way, some of my students work as translators. And that's an excellent job. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to work with these kids in Haiti. I'm going to go in the summer to teach them English so they can become bilingual. And therefore, they could work as a translator and earn money. So translations are really, really important. Really important. So I encourage you, if you can, to try to learn a language, either Spanish or French, definitely. Because there are lots of people that speak those languages, and there's a need. And by the way, when you learn a language and you go to apply for a job, you are a step above someone else who only speaks one language, just so you know. That's a really important thing, especially in healthcare. Questions? Comments? I don't know how long I've taken. Okay. Well, I'm just looking for some feedback from the crowd. I can't get any feedback from my people online. It's not like they have a chat room here, a Zoom chat. Yes, I speak 2 languages. I speak Spanish and French Creole. Right? And I speak a little Swahili because I did missions in Nairobi. So I have done missions in Africa for a year. So it's interesting because a lot of people cannot tell when somebody speaks a different language. You know, they'll just start talking. And then when you respond to them, they go, oh, they get very excited. And people get excited when you speak their language. Yeah, so it's really helpful when I'm traveling. It's very helpful because I can ask questions. I can help somebody. So a lot of times I see older people traveling to meet their families, and they don't speak another language, and they're struggling. And I can see they're struggling. They're older, and I will jump in and help them out. Yeah, well, I have some people here at the parish will come up and volunteer, even if it's once a year. So we have a lot of people that come when the Holy Name Society hosts the Loaves and Fishes. We get like 30 plus volunteers from St. Charles alone, and we usually take a school bus because that's how we do it. But again, um, some of what you guys could do is really kind of help collect stuff because that's an easy job, like even knocking on your neighbor's door saying, would you like to donate a can of food or something, non-perishables? That's like a huge help. And by the way, we also work down at the food cupboard at Epworth United Methodist. So every Sunday after Mass, we collect the food to drop it off during the week. And so something like that, like you saying to your mother, I know you bought me this cereal, but I'm really not interested in this cereal, but I don't want to throw it away. So you bring it to the church, and there's a container in the back of the room, and it says food cupboard. And you put it into the container, and then somebody will eat that doesn't have it, that doesn't have cereal at all. Some of the students last year were collecting different things, different items. And by the way, again, if you have a toy that you don't like, you no longer want, your toy can bring joy to somebody else. So these are small things that kids could do to say, I'm not going to throw this in the trash. I'm going to donate it. So I have people donate dolls. They say, I'm too big for a doll. I don't need a doll. And then they donate the doll, and the doll brings joy to some little girl somewhere. Same thing with trucks. I mean, somebody had like dinosaurs and all kinds of animals in a box. And we took it up to St. Mary's, and boy, those kids just went crazy. So any little thing can make a difference. And always, of course, when you said, what can you do for overseas missions, is you can always pray for safe travels for us when we travel. We've never had a problem, and we thank God we never had a problem. That it's always a smooth entrance and exit, never an issue. So that's been a blessing. Shy group today. Usually the other groups have been talkative. Yes. You have to have a certain level of maturity to be able to handle the environment because there's no paved roads. Everything is a bumpy dirt road, and we live in a dormitory style at the monastery, by the way. Nobody asked that question, but we stay at a monastery with the nuns and in a dormitory type room, and we share a little twin bed. Each person gets a twin bed. There's no air conditioning in 90-degree temperature, so you got to be tough. You got to be able to say, I'm sweating, but it's okay, because I don't live in this environment permanently. And that's one thing I teach the students is that you thank God when you come home that you've got running water and you've got air conditioning if you need it. Whereas in a third world country, you don't have that. So you have to be able to sweat and deal with it for a short period of time. Yes? Well, I did my first mission to Nairobi when I just got out of med school. And then I worked. And then I decided I was working too much and decided I wanted to do something a little, a little exhaling. So I've been going to Haiti for almost 5 years. 5 years. And so it's almost like a natural thing to do for me now, to get on a plane and go to Haiti. Um, I know a lot of people. You know, it's interesting when you go to a country enough and you see the same people. You know, they just like, oh, it's you. Well, hey, how you doing? Um, but yeah, so I've been doing Haiti for almost 5 years straight, and for some reason, God has put that in my pathway, and I just keep going back, and I really get a joy out of being there. Um, I have considered going to other countries, other places, like when Puerto Rico had that hurricane and tornadoes and all that stuff was going on. So I do think about going to other places, but it's, you know, you have to figure out, you have to channel that. It's really hard to get that established. Like even when the Bahamas had an issue, I wanted to go to the Bahamas, but there's a lot that goes into setting up those type of trips. You know, the reservations, where are you going to stay, how are you going to eat? You know, there's a whole lot that goes into that. When I'm at the monastery, we have a cook that cooks food for us all 3 meals a day, so I don't have to do anything other than work. You know, see over 100 patients a day. But yeah. Yes. The most amount of items I collect? Well, you know, that's a good question. I have a room at the university that I stock stuff. So when people make donations, I don't clutter my house because that would make me crazy. So I put it in a storage. I have the students come out and empty my car and put it in storage until we go. So like right now, I've packed a barrel that I'm going to ship this week, right? And then if I get more donations, then they'll go in the next barrel. So it's always a constant, you know what I mean? You're constantly donating. So there's no such thing as I'm not taking any donations. Does that answer your question? Other thoughts? Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a great question. It started when I was a kid. When I was a little kid, I was always doing these fundraisers for school. You know, like every grade, you had to raise money for something. And so I was always knocking on my neighbors' doors, doing all this, selling all this stuff, and the neighbors were always buying this stuff, and I'm like, this is great, you know. So I was raising all this money, and I got such a joy out of that I started collecting. Like I'd hear about somebody having a problem, you know, that was, you know, destitute or whatever, and I would go around and try to collect something for that person. So I started really young doing that. And then when I got to high school, I was volunteering for anything somebody said, do you need, I would volunteer. And how I started doing missions overseas was one of my students came up to me after class, and she said, Dr. Hazel, I think you would really like this. And I said, I don't know. You know? And then, you know, the Holy Spirit has a way of working on your mind when you really try to ignore something. And so it just kept coming in my pathway. And so I was like, okay. And like the first time I went, it was like snowing. It was like a blizzard here. And I was like, oh, Lord, let me just get out of New Jersey. I got on a plane, went there, and it was fantastic. It was a great experience. And you know, once you get a bite of something, it just kind of keeps getting you. And it was, again, it was such a joyous experience to work in the clinic and to deal with all the children, their parents. And then I started the scholarship fund. because I saw these little kids outside the schoolyard, and I said, why are these kids not in school? And they said they don't have any money. And I said, oh, that's horrible. Because here's, what is it like for a little kid to look through the school gate and see all these other kids in there going to school playing, and you're outside the gate? So I started a scholarship fund, and that has been very successful. And so we have over 30 kids that we're sponsored at the Catholic school. For a whole year, they get uniforms, books, and anything else for less than $300 a year. So a lot of people are like, you should spend that kind of money on the weekend. And so it's been really good to be able to see changes and to see the kids that used to be out there inside. So you can't even fully express what kind of joy that gives you. So that's kind of what happened for me. I just started young, and I just kept snowballing. And even when I was in grad school, the kids I babysat, I would take them to the shelters, because we were volunteering in shelters. Even in med school, I was volunteering. And I would take the kids I was babysitting, and now they're married with their own kids, and they do the same thing, and it's great to see that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I am ready to volunteer. I am ready. I am so ready. As Dr. Hazel said, it really starts young. And I know it started young for me. My parents are involved with a service in our community, and it was part of my life. And then Father Dan, I was teaching here, and Father Dan asked me to be one of the youth ministers. And I said, yeah, sure. I said, because I was in SCIM during high school, and I loved it. So I said, yes, I'm finally going to be, a leader. So excited. And Mr. Tim Hurley, he's one of our catechists, he runs the Ronald McDonald House. And he goes, you're going to Ronald McDonald House with me. And I'm like, okay. It went, and I was blown away. And it's the most amazing feeling helping somebody. And that's what I think we're trying to instill in you guys, because that is what Jesus wants us to do. That is what we're called to do. Now, it might not be Haiti, it might not be the soup kitchen, it might not be Ronald McDonald House. It could be a ton of other things that you guys can do. It's what we were talking about during our retreat. What is your gift? Each and everybody has been given a gift from God. What is your gift? Tap into it. And when you start tapping into your gift, you're going to be given a gift back from Jesus. And you're going to feel it in your heart, and it's the love, and then you just want to keep on giving and giving and giving. Because it's just an amazing feeling, isn't it? It really is an amazing feeling. And that is what we are here to do as Catholics. Okay? So just, you guys are young, just, let God and the Holy Spirit take you where they're going to put you. Okay? But when you get that feeling, when you get that fire inside you, you're going to know this is what makes me happy, and this is what Jesus wants me to do. All right? So, we only have a couple more minutes, so we'll say prayers in a few minutes. And next week, too, we're going to have another guest speaker. So, let me just figure out what's going on. All right, guys? Thank you so much. And again, if anybody has any questions while you're, sitting here, just please feel free to ask, okay?